How are you, Eddie?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I almost wore a plaid shirt exactly like yours, and now I wish that I did.
I want to say it's an absolute pleasure to meet you because we've never met. I think we spoke on the phone perhaps 20 some odd years ago. I probably had some obscure question about Ashtanga Yoga, and I called you up and you were very gracious and you took the call. I had been to the studio when you had the studio in Soho.
Huh?
Unfortunately, you were not there that day. Jocelyn was. And it
Oh,
was a pleasure to meet her. And it's funny how small the world is because prior to the call, I just looked at Jocelyn's bio and realized that she had worked with Derek and Rod at the practice
yes.
in Crete. And I was actually there the last year, just before in 1998, before Eric passed away in December.
Oh.
So I'm wondering if we actually even crossed paths then, Jocelyn. Uh,
No, she was
it's
gone by
small,
then.
it's small. Was she gone by then? Yeah.
She was gone by then. Yeah.
How long had she been in Crete with those two guys? You know?
Well, she stayed there for about 3 years or 4 years, straight through. But she was there from the very beginning when Derek first went to Crete to look for space for the practice place. She was actually driving around the island with him
Ah,
scouting out location. So she was there from day one.
well,
And,
it was a beautiful spot.
yeah,
There was
never won.
nothing like jumping in that water after a practice.
Oh man, I'll bet.
It was fabulous. Um, so Eddie, we're about the same age. Well, in fact, we're pretty well exactly the same age. So
25.
way not 26 at all. You've been in the business and practice of yoga for quite some time, 1987.
Huh?
And
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen a myriad of different changes and perhaps even different points of view that you've developed. I'm hoping today that we can kind of touch on three things: the book, the breathing app, and the new app, Yoga 365.
Cool.
If there's any, because I was looking at the number of activities that you were involved in, and I was thinking to myself, wow, it's just sort of mind-boggling. Is there anything that you'd like anybody to know about other initiatives that you're doing outside of those three that you'd like to kind of just touch upon before we begin?
Um, no, that's great. Let's just see where we go.
Oh, cool. So I wanted to start by saying I think this is a really, really beautifully written book, um, and very insightful. And it's a book I think needs to be read probably several times. Um, but there was a component of this, and I hope this resonates with you, that I think that when it comes to, I don't know if you had the um, the ideas of ahimsa or the and satya before you wrote this, because I think it's very sensitively written. Does that resonate with you in any way?
No, but thank you for saying that. I you know, I tried to write it like I was just talking. So, the way in I had been giving lectures for about 4 years on the topics in the book. So, like for 4 years in all my workshops, that was the stuff I had talked about. And so when I got down to writing, it was just like I typed it out kind of like I was going to go through a lecture. So that's how I did it.
The reason I brought the reason I brought this to up, and in my thoughts of it being sensitively written, was that I think that they were very aware, which is interesting. The book is about awareness ultimately, but aware of the audience perhaps reading this book and being able to reach them in a way that was very accessible and non-dogmatic, for lack of a better term. So maybe that's where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came upon me in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know. My editor, Jeff Soroy, is a wonderful editor, and he was very helpful for guiding me through a process of simplicity. And my friend Marshall Higgins, who's a doctor, was really helpful on the long chapter 11. My friend Samuel Columbet, who's also a doctor, was me reorganize the whole chapter on science and make it a lot simpler than I had made it. So I had help, I had input. I needed I needed some guidance, and I got some. I guess it sounds like I got some good guidance, so I'm grateful.
Well, I read the book and again, from just having been in the yoga world myself for a period of time, I kind of just walked away going, I'd like to spend more time with this man.
Here
And
we are.
this is, yeah, here we are in that sense. So you started, was Ashtanga always your primary practice, or was this where you ventured into the yoga world originally?
No, I started off first with just reading Yoga Sutras and reading books on Kundalini and reading Ram Dass. No actual yoga practice,
Okay.
meditation primarily. And then I did some Kundalini yoga with Ravi Singh. And then I did some Kripalu yoga when Amrit Desai was still at Kripalu.
Yes.
And then after that, I went to Shivananda yoga. And that's what I ended up doing for the next few years. And then I didn't meet Pratapi Joyce until 1991. Well, I met him in 1990 in India, and then in 91 I started practicing with him. And then 92 was really when I thought, okay, I'm going to try this system out and see how it goes. Um, but it wasn't the first thing that I did. And yeah, and I stuck with it for a long time, and I thought it was very good practice. And I still think it's a very good practice.
So, um, has your view, well, okay, how to, actually, I want to begin this way. If you don't mind, I'm going to read a part of what Deepak wrote in his introduction to this set the tone of this, because I think it's quite interesting. It's the
But
last paragraph that he wrote in the introduction. It goes, for all its current popularity, yoga in India, and I would say in the West as well, is entangled in mind-numbing intricacies, philosophical controversy, endless wrangling over the ancient texts, competing teachers, and systems on and on. I deeply admire Eddie Stern for bringing clarity, compassion to such an unholy mess. The future depends on such clarity and compassion. Taken all together, this book is the gentlest and most accessible way to embrace yoga in all its potential. Insofar as humans have infinite potential and other home truths about consciousness, yoga unfolds a field of possibilities that would otherwise be closed to the divided. Stern never lets us forget the untapped potential, which may be the core lesson of his teaching and his life.
well, Deepak is being very generous there, and I can't completely agree with his summation about my position in all this. But he is a dear friend, and we have a great respect for each other. So he was being very kind there. Um,
But I
I
do
don't
agree.
know. I take tremendous delight in complicated philosophy. I mean, the stuff that I read and think about is not easy. It requires and demands a lot of attention and many years of reading and rereading. You know, if I'm going to present something in a simple way, then I think anyone who can present something complicated in a simple way, where it still is retaining the essence of what's supposed to be conveyed, means that they've spent time absorbing it. They've spent time thinking about it. They've processed it. Um, and they can say, okay, here, like this is the thing. This is basically what it means, and you're going to have to investigate it on your own for meaning to come up within you about what it means to you. Um, so, you know, and then if you have to explain something for way, 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 way too long and use too many words and too many different ideas, like probably you haven't wrapped your mind around it yet.
Right.
And so therefore, so therefore you're too long-winded and it's overly complicated. But now look at something like Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Like this is a text where Patanjali says things in a very, very simple way. Now, a lot of the sutras, no doubt, are very hard to comprehend without the commentary. But if you just keep thinking about them and reading, they sort of start to take on their own meaning for you, even without commentary. You know, you can just repeat a sutra, meditate on the meaning, think about it for a while, maybe hear a little extra, and then it starts to like take on meaning, and it provides a sort of an inner map to your consciousness and to different things happening. So the ability to um, put all of those complicated things into like a simple phrase is a mark of mastery. This is a sutra form of literature in India and Hinduism, particularly, is is an example of mastery of ideas communicated through a modicum of words,
Mhm.
in very you know, well, there's definitions for what a sutra is, but basically, it's something which is going to be use limited words and be very clear and be sort of incontrovertible. So that's cool. Like we should all spend time, I think, to sharpen our intellect and to sharpen our thinking and to think. I mean, especially like if we're teaching, saying it like none of us are really teaching yoga. We're trying to teach yoga because we understand so little of it. Um, but the little bits that we do understand, we should endeavor to communicate it in the most realistic way possible, from place of what our own actual understanding of it is so far, so that we don't mislead people by thinking that we know more than we do or we've experienced more than we have or anything like that. So simplicity is sometimes the mark, and I'm not talking about me. Simplicity in the people from these traditions is the mark of mastery. Is the identifying people who can convey great truth in a very simple way, like Paramahamsa Ramakrishna. Many of us have read the Ramakrishna's the Gospel according to Ramakrishna, or read the different stories about Ramakrishna and the way that he would convey things about Vedanta, non-dualist Vedanta. He would say, a salt doll walked into the ocean and became one with the salt water. And it's like, okay, I get it. And then, or it's like when he talks about climbing the rungs to liberation, to realization, he says, after you climb all of the steps and you reach the platform of, or the plateau of liberation, you realize that all of the steps you climbed up were made of the same thing of liberation, that it was all one continuous process. So that which you used to climb up was the actual thing which supported you. Well, this is so beautiful and so simple. And so Neem Karoli Baba, when Ram Dass asked him, this is from Miracle of Love, when Ram Dass would ask him, how do I raise my Kundalini? And Neem Karoli Baba said, feed people, serve people. So these are like the ultimate in simplicity, which is just like, wow, okay, let's listen to that and then try to practice that. We don't have to be really, really complicated. I can talk about science for hours and, but that doesn't get you anywhere. If it's not actionable, if all that is
Right.
not going to help me to serve someone or feed someone, um, or melt into the ocean of bliss, then it's just talk. It's just maybe can
Mm.
help you understand a little bit of where things are formulated and where they fit in. But it's not the ultimate. It's just another map. Science is a wonderful map, but it's still a map to help you understand stuff. But the map which is helping you understand stuff isn't the understanding itself. And that's where yoga excels. Yoga is the understanding itself, as much as I
Right.
love science. And my next book is about science also. So.
It's interesting and I love somewhere I read you, of course, in high school, science was not your thing, but it has become your thing, which is, I think,
I
fascinating and
remember in
interesting
10th
as
or
well.
11th grade, yeah, 10th or 11th grade, I can't remember which it was. I think his name was Professor Gordon. Gordon was his first name or his last name. And I got a failing grade for biology. And the note on my report card was, until Eddie gets a haircut and stops wearing ripped jeans to class, there's no way he will pass biology. These were my early introductions
Yeah,
to science.
times have changed. Times have
If only he
changed.
could see me now.
Exactly. Have you always had a passion for the Um, see, for me, yoga is is the whole ball of wax. It's just not the asana. It's just not the. It's everything, as you so um, eloquently describe in the book. But have you always been on this quest and seeker to find out about all the other aspects, which because so many people, are drawn to this practice initially, strictly from a physical standpoint.
I think that the um the thing of people being drawn to yoga from a physical standpoint, I could be wrong, but I think this is a very recent development. Uh, I only think this has come around in the last couple of decades. Uh, from what I
Well,
experienced in the 1980s, and even early in the 1990s, like no one was interested in doing yoga for a physical thing. It was all spiritual stuff. Now I know, like in the 1940s and stuff, when Indra Devi was in Los Angeles and she was teaching Greta Garbo or Marilyn Monroe or all those people, there was a lot of stuff about, there was this new wave of health kick for health that in fitness that was being associated with yoga then. So I understand all of that. But when I came into the yoga scene, which was a very small scene in New York, um, there was extremely little emphasis on physicality because you know the the body was considered just to be this illusory kind of a thing. It was just only useful for service and liberation, like at least according to the teachings of the folks I was listening to back then. So yeah, I was only introduced to yoga from another standpoint, which was yoga was about enlightenment. Yoga was about samadhi. It was about raising kundalini. And so the first person who was really my first yoga teacher was a guy named Ted Biorik. And Ted Biorik was you look a little bit like Ted, actually, not completely, but a little bit like Ted. So, okay, I used to work at a record store called Bleecker Bob's. And Bleecker Bob's was on West Third Street. Originally, it was on Bleecker Street, and then it was on McDougal Street, and then it was on West Third Street. I started working there after high school in 1986, graduated a year late. And when one there who was working in the comic book section, it was a t-shirt section. That's where I worked. Comic book section and a record section. I worked in the t-shirts. And I also used to print t-shirts. I ran a small t-shirt printing company that I started in high school. And so anyway, Ted was working in the comic book section, and we struck up a friendship the first day he was there. And after a week or so, he started talking about yoga, and he started talking about Amrit Desai, who he had received Shaktipat from, and he had this ongoing experience of non-dual consciousness for like weeks, and all these psychic phenomena were happening to him. Um, and so he started giving me books and started telling me about stuff, and started showing me how to meditate. But there were no asanas involved in it at all. He knew one or two poses that he had learned from Amrita Sai. All the rest of it were other like internal practices. So that was my first exposure. And then for Kundalini yoga, like there were not really asanas we were doing. There was just a lot of breath of fire and a lot of chanting and a few poses you would do with your arms in different positions. But these were all kind of like mudras, in kriyas. There weren't really so much asanas. Even if you were standing in their version of the warrior pose, you're doing breath of fire or something. So
Mhm.
the position that you put your body in was only to make it so you did something else challenging in that position, like breathe really fast or whatever. It was a totally, totally different thing. So I didn't really start getting this idea of asanas until I was doing the Shivananda yoga. And then I didn't really get the idea about, that's really where I'd say. And then Ashtanga yoga was a different story. Excuse me. Gotcha. So, a long story short, um, uh, initial introduction I had nothing to do with asanas, and asanas later became like a side project. Um, and they have a lot of value. And I really value doing an asana practice every day. I hope to do one for as long as I possibly can. It's good for your body. It's good for the nervous system. It's good for your mind. It's good for your mobility. We need to be mobile as we get up to, 30, 32 years old, 33 years old, which you and I will be soon. It's
Yes.
we have to think about the future, Michael.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling now.
No, no,
So
no, not at all.
I
But I
did
think
have coffee.
I'm trying to think of so when you became, let's say, primarily an Ashtanga based teacher, or your shala was at the time
Yeah.
primarily an Ashtanga shala, um, because I've not had the opportunity of studying with you. Was philosophy, was meditation, was japa, uh, chanting, was this all a part of your style of teaching within the construct of the physical Ashtanga practice?
Yes. I mean, remember in Broome Street, we had a consecrated Ganesh temple.
I was going to bring that up, which
Yeah.
obviously but most Ashtanga studios do not have.
I have always had a deep interest in ritual and worship, in puja. I started studying Sanskrit in 1989, shortly after I started doing yoga, just a couple years after. So that's always been a primary part of my personal practices.
Right.
So yeah, the study of philosophy wasn't something I really taught a lot. And mantra was not something I really taught all that much, but it was a very big part of my personal practice, as much as doing, any of the different Ashtanga yoga sequences.
Outside of the Ganesh temple, and I'd love you to talk about that in a second, but outside of the Ganesh temple that you had uh, developed, um, were your students um, privy to learning philosophy from you? Was it something that you actually imbued into the practice to them? Or were there special classes that you offered outside of the, Mysore practice or whatever that might be?
Yeah, a few years into it, probably after Patabi Joyce died, I started doing lectures every once in a while, in the evenings or, on a weekend or something. But I had other friends like Professor Shyam Ranganathan from Canada, from Toronto, who would come to New York every once in a while and do a class, like a workshop. And there were other people that I would bring in to do the philosophy who I thought would be better at it than I would. Um,
But you were bringing people in. It was that you decided this was an important thing to add to people's repertoire with respect to the practice. Yes. Yeah. Would you say that was kind of that you were more unique in that with respect to let's say the Ashtanga lineage, or it could be the Iyengar lineage, because I know that's where I came out of. That
Yeah,
my
I don't think so. No, I don't
okay.
think so. I don't think so because, Richard Freeman, and so I'll
Yes.
just talk about the people who were sort of just a little bit before my generation. Richard and
Hmm.
I mean, Tim was definitely way before my generation. So was Chuck, and Richard was a little bit of a generation before me. But so let's call these my predecessors. Richard was very deeply interested in philosophy, and Tim is a very good teacher of yoga philosophy. Chuck, as well, was excellent with his elucidations on just as a contemplative person. So these were
Hmm.
all people who were very contemplative and very thoughtful. Um, and So, but I never studied with them. I never went to their schools and saw what they were doing, but I know them as people that that's what they were doing.
Right.
So, I think that certainly the folks who were around when I got there were already engaged in a spiritual of them, but most of them, I've definitely the Ashtanga Yoga
No,
team
I would
was way
agree.
more
And then the
physical
people
than
that you're mentioning,
yeah, Yeah.
It was
I
more
mean,
visible
definitely
then?
the Ashtanga. Yeah, well, no, the Ashtanga yoga scene was the yoga itself was way more physical than any other yoga I had done or anything else I'd seen. Um,
Of course.
so there was that. It was uh, but I don't know about generations after me. I think that there is a certain level of focus on the postures that you see on social media.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't paint the entire picture of what Ashtanga yoga is.
Mhm.
It only paints a surface level picture. And even those people who seem to be very, very interested in the postures themselves, off camera, they might be very philosophically oriented people too, but that's not what, sells tickets or whatever. Um, I don't know. I really don't know. But my feeling is that anyone who's coming to yoga and they really feel that they're coming to yoga, 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 they are on a quest. And how they present themselves to the world and what they end up teaching, you know, maybe it's very physically or detailed or descriptive oriented. Maybe it's very oriented towards how to do poses better. But if even if their feeling is, I want to help people to do poses better, that just might be where they find their fulfillment and success, where they find their fulfillment in helping people to expand and helping people to grow. Because their level of growth might be, I'm expanding and feeling my potential and feeling my creativity through the mastery that I'm gaining of my body. And that's liberating. And so that's what I'm going to give to my students. And I'm going to bring them as far along as I can. And so I think that that's as long as that's a pure intention, it's noble. And as long as people aren't, getting hurt, then it's okay. So that's basically what I think. So I haven't, I haven't studied with other Ashtanga yoga teachers. I don't know what they're teaching. I only see some of the
Right.
things I see on Instagram. But my feeling is, in general, I'd say at least 98 or 99% of the people who are teaching Ashtanga yoga, Iyengar yoga, power yoga. I don't know about power yoga, but whatever the yoga is, Shivananda yoga, all those yogas that they are interested in spiritual growth. And how they convey it is just going to be, we can only convey the level of spiritual growth that we're at. And
Right.
but that doesn't mean that it's not spiritual, quote unquote, or growth oriented, even if it's just not at a higher level. I mean, I'm not teaching at a higher level of a philosophy teacher or of a meditation teacher or of someone who's doing just like pure inner work. Like, I'm not teaching on that level. I'm teaching on a level of, this is all I know right now. And this is what I do. So this is what I'm teaching. And that's all.
I
So,
think the book
I really don't know.
but I think the book is that gateway in many ways. The book is a gateway of people. It's very practical, the book, I think, in so many ways. And as you take complex topics and make them very practical, almost in terms of, well, not almost, in how to live your life on a day-to-day, minute, hour by hour way. And I think that's the absolute brilliance of the book myself. Um, and so clearly this was important for you to was there a reason behind writing the book for yourself?
There was a reason behind writing the book. And that was because well, I mean, it started off as a different book and then it turned into this. Um, but the book is basically an investigation, my own investigation into like, how does yoga work? What's
Mhm.
happening that makes people feel better? Um,
Right.
and so many people, like I could see from all the different yoga systems that, and I said this in the beginning of the book, you have someone who has a headache, someone who has a lot of stress, someone who has bad digestion, someone who can't sleep well, someone who's dealing with lost someone who just, needs to relax. And they all come to the same yoga class and they all go out feeling a little better. And that thing that was wrong with them or that they felt was wrong has been addressed and is starting to feel a little more balanced. And I thought this is so different than modern medicine, where there's a different drug for all of those problems.
Mhm.
And they don't always work. But how is it that a diversity of problems can come to the same thing, and that same thing can make the diversity of problems feel better? That's what I wanted to look at.
Well then, you're very clear, but this is a practice about the mind, right? And about creating awareness of the mind, and that awareness allows us to sit in our true nature. Is there a word that you would use to one word that you would use to describe what our true nature is?
Oh yeah, I can only use words that have been used in the texts. I can't use my own words because I don't know. Um, Patanjali uses just the word, mm, you know, tada drashtahu swarupe avasthanam. So swarupe is one's true form, um, one's true nature. We have a form that we identify with a form, but this is a changing form. So therefore, because it's changing form, it can be quote unquote real or lasting because it's going to change. The only thing that is everlasting about this form is that it will always change. That's the only thing that we can, be
What do you
dependent
think
on.
of the concept that,
So
maybe I'll rephrase? Sorry. What do you think of the concept, and I'll rephrase it in this? What do you think of the concept that at the core of our true nature, we are love?
yeah, I think that that's a very nice concept. Um, and but I think that it's still probably a concept. As long as we're using words, then it's going to be an idea. So even the word self, even the word awareness, all of these
Mhm.
are going to be they're all going to be ideas, but they're helpful ideas. Um, Patanjali talks about this, and he says that vikalpa is imagination. Some types of imagination are helpful for calming the mind so that we can have a fuller sense of what we might be or who we might be.
Mhm.
And so some of those things might be like Ram Dass's statement or meditation of I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. This is vikalpa. This is imagination. This is using words to convey an idea that might not be reality, but it's a helpful one. That to say that you know, to say aham brahmasmi, I am Brahma, or to describe the absolute as Satchit Ananda or Satyam Jnanam Anantam as truth, knowledge, and infinitude. These are, or to say that or to say that realization is like stepping into an ocean of love. These are all vikalpas because they're going to give us some feeling or sense of our expanded nature. But it's not going to be true. As long as we're using words, we're still going to be limited by them. And so when we say something like our true nature or the core of our true nature is love or the core of our true nature is awareness or bliss or whatever, um, we have to use words because that's the level that we're on. And if when we read those things, if we start thinking, oh yeah, that's the truth, like that's what it is, like we're our true nature is love, and someone else says, no, our true nature is bliss. No, man, our true nature is love. That's what the guru said. And then,
Right.
so then you can get bound to thinking, oh, it's this one thing. So these are all helpful ideas that can carry us along. You know, with Ram Dass's statement that I am loving awareness, which is a beautiful thing to like, if you say that to yourself all day, by the end of the day, you're just going to feel that you're loving awareness and that everyone else is loving awareness. And you'll go into like things are helpful, um, but they're helpful in context. So, you know, if you look from the yoga perspective and what you see in some of the Upanishads, looking at the different levels of being, body awareness, that there's this body which exists. I'm prana awareness, awareness of energy. I'm mental awareness, memories, my thoughts, my feelings, the information which is coming in. I am intellect awareness, awareness of the ability to focus my attention where I want it to be and to be discerning. I am bliss awareness, awareness of all the things that I think have form really are just pervaded by the joy of being. And then after that would come, I'm loving awareness, which is like this layer below the bliss awareness. And then below that even is I am the awareness of awareness, which is like a formless, loving awareness has form to it. But then below that, even there's this I'm awareness of awareness. And that awareness of awareness is even like a deeper formless. And then even the awareness of awareness, when you are established in that, then from that point, even the idea of a meditator can fall away so that all that exists is awareness and there's no even meditator anymore being aware of anything. And that's Samadhi, according to Patanjali. So the whole thing is a peeling away of layers, you could say, but even the layers are illusory too. So
Well, there was a great quote, and I forget who it was in the book. You were talking about this aspect of peeling the layers of the onion away, but you still have the peeler who is left behind.
A.G. Mohan.
Yeah.
That was A.G.
Yeah.
Mohan. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Such a great quote. There was a question here. Somebody was asking, how does self awareness create a liberation or lead to liberation? Um, you kind of touched on it, but it was a specific question. Do you want to deal with that at all?
Best I can. So what is the question specifically?
The question is from Kitty Catch, and it
Okay.
is how does self awareness lead to liberation?
Well, again, with all these things, like my main answer to these questions is I don't know. Um, the only thing I can do is I can try to speak in reference to some of the texts. So we'll just stick with Yoga Sutra because that's what we've been talking a little bit about. Um, so liberation in Yoga Sutra is um, a process of becoming extremely intimate with all of your thought processes to the point where you can see all of the subtle impressions of where your thought processes might be arising from. And then begin to work with those impressions so that they don't come into greater form that you then identify with. So, for example, like right now, we're talking. And as we're talking, I'm thinking because I'm thinking about what I want to say. Unless I say something particularly good, in that case, I'm probably not really thinking. It's just coming out from somewhere. So the idea of thinking is when there are some thoughts that are occurring in the mind that I begin to engage with, and I pick those thoughts and I solidify them and I try to make them sequential. I try to make them into a point where I can start to articulate them. So I take this thing called thought, which is happening all the time, and I turn it into thinking. And then I turn that thinking into what I think really is, what reality is. So thoughts are just things that are happening in this field of what we call, it's an information field called the mind. But when we latch on to particular thoughts or thought processes, then it turns into thinking because we're engaging with it. So thinking is an active, it's a verb. We're engaging with things that are there. And as we become active with these subtle, sort of bubbling foam of thoughts, then we start to identify with them. And I start to say, this thing that I'm about to say, because I've been thinking about it, Maybe I think that I'm right to say it. Or maybe I think this is the way things really are. Or maybe this is how I think I really feel, and that's why I'm going to say it. Oftentimes we'll say it and we'll go, oh my God, that's not what I meant to say at all. Or, oh my God, that's not right. I'm completely wrong. Or we'll say it and we're totally wrong, but we're insistent that we are right. So now, so yoga says, okay, uh, understand number one, that thinking is usually a misunderstanding of the information field that you're mistaking for reality. So, and there's going to be a few different types of thinkings that are going to obscure your way of knowing who you truly are. So, the thoughts that you're having and the way you engage with them is giving you a very, very partial and very limited idea of who you truly are. So now we're not going to bother with so much with the thinking. We're going to say, okay, identify that now. Let's see what thoughts are. Where are they arising from? What's this thought information field? And the thoughts are called samskaras. They're impressions, which are like memories, basically. And so then you start working in very subtle ways with these samskaras, with, recognizing where they might be coming from. And when they arise, to not engage with them so they don't turn into thinking and then they don't turn into a distorted reality. So now you've moved yourself from a fake reality or false reality to the active principle, which is causing that. And now, okay, now I've seen what that is. I'm going to hang out now with the samskara level and start to work with those things and not allow that arising to happen. How do you do that? By being present, by being aware, by being mentally quiet and physically quiet and nervous system quiet, so that you can feel the things as they start to arise and not turn them into something that they aren't. That's so hard to do. I'm
Mm.
turning stuff into things that they aren't all the time, you know? And and if you're an overly sensitive person and emotionally sensitive, like we do that, we'll turn things that don't exist into things. We catastrophize and all that stuff. That's turning something which isn't into something, that we think is. So now we have this. So, how do we understand the foam of thought that's not arising? Awareness, be present with it. And that means we have to be really quiet. And then when those things aren't arising so much, that becomes a really enjoyable activity, like staying there and not allowing things to arise that don't need to arise. This becomes a great undertaking. It's like playing your own, video game in your inner being of, like Pac-Man, gobbling up the things that are going to, eat you up. And so that's basically how awareness will lead you towards a full knowing of who you are. And so we don't have to say like liberation, because liberation is a very loaded term. Mm, Let's just say something simpler. Let's say that one of our big problems is avidya. And avidya is an incomplete knowing of who we are. We know a little bit, we have a little sense, but we don't have a full sense. And so what we're moving towards is vidya, which is a full knowing of who we are. And so, and awareness is sort of the stepping stone to letting everything be quiet so that we can be present and be with our true nature, which will almost automatically start to reveal itself to us. So there's a very beautiful God that says, um, the self is not known through much learning, strength, or through a lot of listening to talks or discourses. But the self reveals itself in the heart of the seeker through through the strength of their wishing to know. So the desire we have to know who we are and the effort we make and the yearning that we have allows the self to reveal itself to us in our minds, which is more powerful than any added information that we can get from the outside. How is awareness going to help us in the path to self knowledge? By being aware that we desire it, by being aware that it's something which will give us the fulfillment of being. That's how.
Um, you've gone through the almost the process of smita. It's very interesting. It was a wonderful description. Thank you so much. I'm trying to be cognizant of time because there are a few things that I want you to touch upon. Um, One of the things that I've been playing with lately in terms of sitting in that place of being quiet, sitting in a place of being still, is the recognition that um, what comes out of my mouth is really just my story. And my story is a compilation of a bunch of things, right? It could be experiential, some of it could be proven scientifically, some of it is just stuff my parents have taught me or friends have said. And it's really giving me this place of pause in terms of how I'm interacting with others because I've finally come to the conclusion or are beginning to become more aware that if I just recognize this is my story and that your story, I'm using you as an example, is completely different, completely different. And the only time I'm going to get myself into trouble is when my story becomes my belief, because then I have this attachment to my story is right and yours is wrong, right? And that this awareness of that this is just me and I'm me and everybody else is them. And there's just this greater understanding that we're all in this game together, so to speak. Right. And the only way to come to that is in that, and is in that pause, in that reflection. I don't know if you had any comments on.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I agree.
Beautiful. Okay. So there was something that because we got about 12 minutes left before they're going to kick us out here. There's the app. I came across the breathing app, funnily enough, from Tony. Do you know Tony? He's a natural
I
lifestyle
think I know the
guru who
name.
ran bare.
Oh, yes,
Well, he
yes,
ran
yes.
barefoot from the very bottom of the UK to the top of the UK, and he was absolutely adamant that working his through what he would call his pain cave during the moments, at the night when he finished running 36 or 8K barefoot or whatever, that the breathing app was what brought him back to a place of balance. And this is where I first came across the breathing app. So um, I had a few questions for you before you describe what the app is. There are uh, what am I looking for? There are counts that are attached to the app, like five, three breaths, four, five, six, six. It doesn't go beyond six. Was there a rationale for that? I mean, I know there's one ratio that's 5-7, but there's 6-6, and then there's below. Was there a reason for that? And prior to maybe answering that question, give everybody a brief description of resonance breathing and the app itself.
So, resonance breathing is a particular breathing ratio of between 5 to 7 breaths per minute. Some studies have found that it's 5.5 breaths is a sweet spot. Some have shown that 6 breaths is a sweet spot per minute. We normally breathe between 14 to 18 breaths per minute. So we're slowing it down to about less than a half, like about a third of our normal breathing rate. When that happens, there's a particular, um, you could say, coherence that occurs between our respiration, our heart rate, and the signaling of the baroreceptors, which are the thing that monitor our blood pressure. They all come into the same sort of synovial wave together. Normally, our respiration is doing one thing, and our blood pressure monitoring is doing another, and the heart rate is doing another. But then when we slow our breath down to this particular rate, all those three things, they come into the same pattern. They all start doing the same thing at the same time. And that begins to act as a sort of a reset button for your homeostatic functions, that part of our nervous system which keeps our body in balance, which restores our body to balance. It is good for a number of different things. It's been shown to increase vagal tone, which is part of the communication network between the visceral organs and the brain. It's also good for lowering inflammatory levels in the body, a host a bunch of different things. So um, our body exists on patterns, We have a circadian rhythm, which is our sleep and waking cycle. It's a cycle. We have different patterns for all of our organs. All of our organs are operating at different levels at different times of the day, depending on what's happening. So we have all these different body clocks, and a lot of the body clocks are kind of doing different things at different times. And one of the amazing things about resonant breathing is that it sort of synchronizes all these clocks for the few minutes that we're doing the practice. And then it just restores balance, and that's what it does. So the reason we don't do anything more than 5 to 7 breaths per minute is because anything outside of that is not resonance frequency. And the only thing I was interested in making with the app was a breathing practice for people who wanted to do resonance breathing. Nothing else. It's not a pranayama app. I see Kitty asking about the 4-7-8 breathing. That's like something Andrew Weil made up or something. I have never seen that in any yoga texts. So,
It's
and
incredible.
and we weren't interested in doing anything other than resonance frequency, really beneficial. It's good for stress. It's good for anxiety. It's good for sleep. It's good for bringing a meditative state of mind. That's it. Simple, free, easy to use.
I love the app. It's brilliant, and I love the different options you have with the ball and the sound and whatnot. I think it's really nicely put together. Did the app come out of the work that you did with the breath work you did on Chopra Well, or did it come out of that work, or did it come out prior to, or was it a part of that or not?
No, it
Time
came
frame
out way
wise.
prior to that. Yeah, it came out
Oh,
way
did it? Okay.
prior. It came out 3 years ago. We did it 3 years ago. And
Okay.
yeah, we built the app for less than $2,000 over a year-long period, way less. And we had these three goals. Number one, it should be free. Number two, it should look good. And number three, it should be easy to use. And we've had we've spent $0 on marketing. We've had about 400,000 plus downloads. We have 50,000 monthly users, and we're pretty happy. It's doing the trick.
I
Right
would
now,
think.
we're developing a new version of the app right now, a paid version, because a lot of people have requested that they like the simplicity, but could we have ratios? Could we make it programmable? Could we add more sounds? And it's like, yeah, we can do all those things, but then we have to charge you because we've been building all this stuff is like a labor of love. We have no advertising in it, so there's no income stream for this thing whatsoever. So we're going to always keep the free version exactly like it is, but we're building a paid version that will have all the different programmable things and options and stuff like that. We'll announce that probably in a month or so. We'll put up a website, and we're going to have we basically need to get about 1,000 um, uh, supporting subscribers, really, and it'll be like a
Paid subscription
lifetime.
type thing.
It'll be like a pre-founder or developer type of a thing. It'll be
Yeah.
$25, and you'll get a lifetime subscription to the paid version, and that will allow us to build everything out and run it for a year. So that this is the first place I'm announcing that. Actually, you heard it here,
Well,
the
I look
Abundant
forward to.
Yogi.
I look forward to that. I think that
Yeah.
that will be terrific. You certainly hit the mark with your objectives on the first go round. So I think that's terrific. The new app that you've recently released is the Yoga 365,
Yes.
and I love the idea of just doing one simple thing a day and building on that. How has that been going for you?
The Yoga 365 is going well. Thank you. Our feedback so far has been positive. Um, the idea is for folks who can't, they're not able to do longer practices each day. They don't have time for a 20-minute or 30-minute or hour-long practice. Or, they want to do something, they know they should, but they're not very motivated, but they know maybe they can do like 1 minute of something a day. That's who we were reaching out for. We weren't reaching out for the expert yogis. We were looking to support those who really need to do something. They need to start moving.
Well, I think it's
Start moving
terrific,
women.
and especially at the time we're living in, right?
Yeah.
I think both the book and the app are really wonderful tools for the time we're living in when people are under at this moment, this extraordinary time that we're in, who are under unbelievable stresses and fears and so forth and so on, and are struggling. So I think I think both have hit the mark really beautifully. So
Thanks.
I applaud you for that. I want to sort of say, well, not I want to sort of say, I've been recognizing during our time together here that I was actually very nervous about this process with you, and I thought that was very funny. And I'll have to process that as I go along. But I kind of worked myself up, and gee, I'm going to be talking to Eddie. I've read the book. How am I going to do all of this? Um, because I just started this as a means of introducing people. I think we're making really positive changes in the world, put it out there so people could become more aware. So it's been an interesting, because you're the first person I've done this with who I haven't known before. So it's been an interesting experience and a delightful one. So I want to say, listen, I thank you, Eddie, first of all, for all that you've offered us, the grace that you portray, the humility, and it's been an absolute honor and delight.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Michael. It's been really enjoyable conversation.
Well,
And
hopefully
thanks
some
for
more.
taking thank you for taking the interest in the stuff I'm doing. I really appreciate it. That's gratifying. And so yeah, what do we want to do? We want to
I
do
think
like
you're doing important. I
no,
think
I
you're
was
doing
just gonna
important work.
say, yeah, you're doing this thing now where you're just starting to talk with people on Instagram and you want
Yes.
to do good things. You want to do
Yeah.
good things, you want to reach people, you want to be engaged in goodness. And like that's what we want to do, right? Like if you say like what is yoga to me, for
Mhm.
me, yoga is to be engaged in goodness. Like that's pretty much it. And that's a good activity. And that can take a lot of different forms. And it's too bad that it gets so dogmatic. And I was a very dogmatic person for a long time in Ashtanga Yoga because I thought that's how I was supposed to be.
And I
And
can relate to that myself as
yeah,
well.
I thought that's how I was supposed to be. So that's what I did in order to fit in. So now I've spent some years trying to release myself from that. And all of the things I do are part of my process of releasing myself from the dogma that I thought I was supposed to be adhering to.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that's also part of where I feel I am at and going. And so I appreciate your honesty, again, your integrity. And I really love what you were putting out and standing for. It needs to be heard, Eddie. So thank you.
Thanks, brother. Peace.
Peace out.